my one kind of sounded like Christopher Walken there for a second. One.
Hey, and welcome to Minions and Misfits, the tabletop RPG podcast. It's also family-friendly and off-kilter and also family-friendly. And anyway, normally...
Primarily family-friendly.
I thought I had it memorized, and I didn't. Anyway, instead of playing your archetypal heroes, we play your, stereotypical minions and misfits, and this season we played some Regency-era-esque NPCs in a D&D starter town. And so we're going to be doing a bit of a retrospective where we kind of go back and we think, and we discuss some of the things that happened this season. Joining me today is our facilitator, Rebecca Evans.
Hi.
Our dear Freddy, Dillon.
Hello.
And then Ephraim.
Hey, how's it going?
Savage. Wow, I didn't realize this was bleeding over.
Well, and I am Sam. I'm going to be your facilitating this discussion today.
Ooh.
And so, I've asked this the last few times we've done these retrospectives, but just starting by going around the table, starting with Rebecca, going into this season, how did you think it would differ from the seasons before it? I guess it's a bad question because you've only been with us for one season prior, but how has it differed from your one season?
Let's see. Well, I was the facilitator this time, so that was definitely different. It was very exciting and an honor to be allowed such unlimited power so soon. So thank y'all for trusting me to do that. It was also exciting and a little nerve-wracking to be using a system that didn't use dice.
Yeah.
After the much more rulesy systems that y'all had used, this was going to be a lot different, as well as some different themes with romance and such. I was a bit nervous about how things would turn out and how much y'all would enjoy it, and I was very happy with how things did turn out, and that y'all had a good time, and I hope our listeners have as well.
I, for one, loved it. What do you think, Dillon?
Yeah, this is probably a tie for my favorite season with season 2.
Season 2 is so good.
It was a blast. I wasn't sure what to expect from it exactly when we first started into it, but we very much found our own style, I think, as we were kind of going through. And once we got a little more familiar with the cycles, and we're like, okay, this is now. I think we all jumped into the planning phase a lot more than we had in previous seasons as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're like, oh, I want this to happen for these people. Like the interpersonal drama was the focus instead of the highlight.
And we had started getting pretty collaborative, starting really in season 2 in terms of playing different characters, and then that grew into season 3. And then this one, we just went full in with each person.
We are the town.
Yeah, we each played several characters, which I thought was golden. What about you, Cam?
Yeah, I was, like everybody, I wasn't entirely sure how it was going to go or what was going to happen, but I knew that once we found our feet, it was probably going to be really good.
It did let me also lean into my strength of writing versus talking, so I got to actually use the epistolary phases to my advantage.
Such good writing, too. I love it.
You can thank my mother.
Thank you,
Who is
Dillon's mom.
Who both homeschooled me and is also an author. So
Dillon's mom, if you ever need an audiobook narrator, you let me know.
Oh, yeah.
But also your son would do a very good job.
Nah, I don't talk good.
Oh.
Me no talk.
All right, well then, Rebecca, you joined us as a series regular / co-host of the show in season 3 in the Maywood. And so, this obviously very, very different. You pivoted a lot from those themes. You made it your own as the facilitator. What were some of your ideas going into it? What kind of specific themes and factors and tones did you want to change from previous seasons?
Let's see. If I'm honest, when I was doing some planning for this season, I was thinking less about previous Minions and Misfits seasons and more about the campaign I had just finished DMing.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Which was supposed to be a very short adventure of just 5 games and was a lot longer.
That's what they all say.
I finished that one in many ways unhappy with how I had GM'd. And so I talked a lot with my players who had a good time, but also saw my weaknesses and got feedback from them. And I very much wanted to learn and apply those lessons in GMing for y'all. And I was very nervous about doing a bad job.
An unknown redemption arc.
A big thought I had after finishing that for fun campaign, I mean, all of this is for fun, but I digress, was that I wanted my plans to have kind of a central theme to explore in a phrase or a word. And for Pearl's Field, that was treasure. What is worth treasuring? What do we treasure? Why? Which is also how I got the name Pearl's Field. Grew up in the Christian church, and in the Gospels, there are some parables about a pearl of great price and selling everything you have to go buy a field that has a treasure in it, discussing what we value and what we treasure and what we will do for what we treasure. And so I combined, also was thinking of pearls before swine, which is a phrase in the English vernacular.
Very much Frederick's stuff there.
So I combined pearl and field, and then that's where I got the idea of like, but why Pearl's Field? Oh, pearly cotton. That's such a fun idea of like cotton that looks like pearls. And okay, what else is interesting going on here? And ended up making this really fun, at least to me, kind of hook for this town that frankly I want to use.
Yeah, because the world building question is always one of the hard parts of a DM, right? It's like, okay, why is this town here? Like, I know we're here because we want to have characters interacting in this area, but like, why does this place actually exist?
World building is my favorite, and if anyone listening is wanting to start GMing with any system and you think Pearl's Field is neat, please use it. Please go and use it and make it your own, stick it in your world, have fun with it. Did I answer the question?
Oh, yeah.
I think so, yeah. That's usually how these answers go. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Cam, with your character, obviously, bit of a pivot from Weehawk to GMing Season 2 to playing a turtle with a Hawaiian shirt to now playing Ephraim.
Best turtle.
And so, I guess, how'd you build your character after Season 3, and how did that affect, I guess...
Well, this is also the most complicated character I think we've ever had on any part of anything on this show.
That's fair. No pressure in answering.
So, going in for like the first 2 episodes or so, I guess, I wasn't really sure what Ephraim's deal was. I knew that I wanted him to be a kind of a Heathcliff type character.
Okay.
He's sort of an outsider who has come in and is just sort of wrecking up the place, whose motivations are kind of unclear, at least to begin with. And I didn't really find anything to grab on until I started figuring out what his motivations were. And then once Rebecca and I started
when did that
scheming
start?
Behind the scenes... it started relatively early, probably episode 3 or 4.
It may have started after episode 1. I feel like
maybe
we decided that they were half siblings after episode 1. I remember because I remember in that first episode having Georgia, give Ephraim a kiss on the cheek, which was just to show like, oh, they're friends and she's really excited to be here and a very friendly person. And then later I was like, oh, it's even better. It was a slip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just kind of snowballed from there as we just kept on like adding these layers upon layers to the plot.
They just kept coming
behind the scenes. It was funny because like we were doing this and in the back of my head I was like, I wonder if, like, are Dillon and Sam, like, also planning things behind the scenes with
Not
Rebecca?
Not as much as you.
Like,
I feel like all of my planning was really on the front end. Me and Rebecca, after session 0,
you guys had a combo before we jumped in.
Yeah. We probably spent a solid hour, maybe even 2 hours, just discussing the dynamic that Niles would have. Because the one thing I didn't want, personally, is... a lot of the time in romantic comedies, there's the dynamic of this. There's this whole complicated situation that would be solved if someone would just say one sentence.
Right. Yep.
And that is what I wanted to not be a thing, because that always frustrates
avoid
me.
the cliche.
Yeah. And so we wanted to give it a dynamic where everyone had different interests that misaligned, and no one could really say what they were really thinking without portraying another part of themselves. And I think it worked out really well, and I really, I in terms of how I feel about Niles, I probably respect him as a person more than any of the other characters I've played, because I think he is genuinely a good person. I think a lot of that came out of trying to position him in a way of how to act moral in this very complicated, emotional
Strange
situation.
Yeah.
What
I
about you,
To
Dylan?
jump ahead,
Oh.
to kind of combine that and jump ahead into one of the later questions about that, because you brought up like trying to have like a lot of that came down to their personal conflict. Like that was the main focus of this season, is that in both how we built our characters and how we like interacted, everyone had their own thing they were going for, and yet they were all tangled together in some bigger thing in addition to that. So I think this was the best like individual character building we had done, because there was a distinct goal or like some storyline going on for each character in addition to just an overall narrative, which I really loved. But that also drove the conflict so hard, especially between Ephraim and Niles, and then later everything with Freddie having to figure out with the family and with Georgia and with all that nonsense. Like there was just so much interpersonal conflict that was the story.
Yeah. And like to further answer the question, as far as like Weehawk was pretty much a good guy from the beginning. He was kind of had some sharp edges, but he was not at all like a villainous character.
Yeah, there wasn't like an evil bone in him or anything like that. Yeah.
And throughout my role playing and DMing career, I've DM'd, so I've played villains that way. But it's really not the same as getting into a campaign as a player and just being like
The
just
antagonist.
getting in there and playing a villain. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was so much fun.
Yeah.
I really think like the peak of it was when we were discussing the seating chart at Ephraim's
Yes.
party.
Oh man.
just idea after idea.
This will cause
of
the most conflict.
ways to make as much conflict happen as possible.
How much drama can I conjure at this party?
Y'all, just that time of figuring out the seating arrangement was just peak GM joy to see
Yeah,
all
well,
of you
that's
so
peak Austin,
excited
too.
about it. Yes, because part of me was like, I don't know. When I've talked about Good Society with other folks, a lot of times they've been like, like not really super into it. And
You found a bunch of literary nerds here.
yes, and to see like, no, this is so fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Every time I talk to people about this season, I'm like, let me tell you, when we were discussing the seating arrangement, it was wild.
But yeah, Ephraim is by far one of my most favorite characters I've ever played.
Yeah. I think
I think Freddie was like trying to channel Colonel Fitzwilliam as much as I could in the beginning. So just
I think for Niles, I think he was the first character I played in this series where he wasn't an extrovert or even a very well-spoken person. Because, like, Gorfit, well-spoken is a big word for Gorfit, but he is talkative.
he was spoken, certainly.
Spoken.
A very spoken character.
Outspoken.
And the same with Keith. Keith was very outspoken. And then, I played all the NPCs and they, spoke. But I feel like Niles has obviously...
You're most reserved.
He's very reserved, very aloof, and very... More than anything, he really is careful about what he says.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of interesting to play, and rendered pretty good results, I thought.
What's funny is the aloof is more in his own mind than it is for other people, because I don't think people view him as aloof necessarily, but he considers himself that sometimes.
Yeah.
Holding himself back a lot.
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, my question here is simply, why Good Society?
Oh, man.
Because Jane Austen.
That is a good question.
Because Jane Austen. I was so I don't remember how I stumbled across Good Society, but I know as soon as I found it, I really wanted to run it. I wanted to play it. I wanted it. And I remember watching a Court of Fae and Flowers by Dimension 20.
Yes.
Not family friendly, heads up.
Yeah, but very good.
But so good. So good. And the drama, the storytelling, the comedy. I love the juxtaposition of some serious drama and absolute insanity and shenanigans. And when I realized that they were using Good Society, I just got even more excited. So thinking about how I could potentially run a season of Minions and Misfits, I was looking at the systems I was excited about and trying to think of how that could be Minions and Misfitty. And I thought about society. I, as a GM, love world building and love making unnecessarily fleshed out NPCs. I love having, you're just surrounded by people who I know their background, I know their complicated relationships. They are so unnecessarily deep. And even if I make one up on the spot, they will be unnecessarily deep later. And so the idea of just all of us collaboratively making this town was super exciting to me. I also really love collaboratively building a world. I love coming up with world building on my own, but then I'm not going to flesh out the whole thing. To be able to be like, okay, tell me more about this society that your character is from. I made up part of it, but now you tell me more about it, flesh it out. And
I think some of that someone Sam brought in a couple times too. Whenever he DMs, he usually has some like prompting questions of like, okay, well, what's this thing in the world? Like, okay, what do you think?
Yeah, and especially
Learned
at the end of
Tom
the last
McGee.
season.
Shout out.
Hey. At the end of the last season, when we got to pick up some of the Bean Scouts, the idea of us sharing the NPCs of our NPCs was very exciting to get to give y'all even more control and power.
I just love that we have like a little spreadsheet of various NPCs in the town of Pearlsfield that we're like, oh yeah, these guys, let's get them. Yeah.
Yeah, the town became very fleshed out at the end with the Nickelbacks and Mr. McPherson,
and they all got to come back for the big finale against Schmezos. And,
Yes,
I love that that we do voice all the different like major characters and NPCs, but I will say it has ruined me at table D&D player. Because there's been several times now where I'll be playing a game, but I'll be like, oh, I can voice that NPC, and the DM's like, that's not how that works. I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
I feel you. I talking to a friend who GMs some very spread out games of ours. I was like, you should let me just play both of these characters that I have played at the same time. You can trust me. Let me do it, please.
I can do it, I promise.
I'll be good.
So we talked a little bit about what inspired Pearlsfield. Do you have anything to add to that before we move on to the next question?
Read everything Jane Austen.
I'm trying to think. I tried to keep it very basic world building wise, knowing myself and my proclivity to getting super detailed. I wanted it to be pretty general in its D&D type feel, so that in part so that people listening could take it and use it in their own homebrew worlds, and also so that there would be more opportunities for y'all to make up stuff.
Yeah, it definitely started generic, and then it very much became our own thing as we went, which I loved.
Yeah.
So
I loved our question corners fleshing out the
I got
town.
some feedback from people who were listening to who like question corner is literally the best. We need to do this in everything we do with D&D.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I want to use that in future games moving forward, especially with stationary games. If things are more moving around and more focused on the characters, then it may be more of the character question corners.
Yeah, character based. Yeah. But there's always an opportunity for it to flesh out something in the game. So
I really have discovered that I love the collaborative element of collaborative storytelling. That's what I'm here for. I want to tell stories together with my friends.
That's what this outlet is for.
I hate it. It's the worst. I wish there was none at all.
I think for my like in-person, because I have a couple of in-person games that I'm part of, but the main one that we're in is very much like the dice tell the story kind of a situation where it's like our DM loves that, and so having the collaborative element is very, very fun here. And then my other in-person one is almost entirely role playing. Like we are like very few conversations outside of in character. So very different vibes for everything.
That's fun to have those different kinds.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I was joking about collaborative, you know.
Yeah.
No, because I'm doing a podcast.
You're off the podcast, Sam.
But well, what I really love about it, and this just stands out about how you all are as creatives, it's almost like we're like a sketch comedy group where it's like,
yeah,
we're used to doing a little bit of everything. Where there's a question down here about the emotions and how to deal with that in game, and I've never felt like, I guess for lack of a better term, unsafe playing the character who's being the target or who's being the this or that, because we're all building towards the same thing, and that's a very cool place to be at with a group.
That also depends on who you're playing with.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like there's a lot of groups out there who they're basically strangers you're playing with because you don't necessarily have friends that are into that thing. But it really depends.
That idea always seemed so weird to me, to just like, when there'll be like groups who are like DM seeking players or players seeking DM.
Sometimes you just need a D&D outlet, but you don't have nerdy friends. So
right. How do you play a game with people that you don't know?
I think a big thing, carefully, and I think being very clear in your goals together. Goals.
That's why those session zeros are so important.
That was one of the things I learned from my last campaign. Session 0 is very important, even for what is supposed to be a short game. So having that,
I have go ahead.
Having that unified goal and understanding of direction and boundaries, I think that was a good thing in the collaboration phase of Good Society at the beginning of, okay, like, are we going to have romance? What kind of levels of sexism are we going to have? Just setting some expectations. And I also shared with the players my kind of driving theme of treasure before we started.
Yeah. I'm DMing a group currently for Cyberpunk Red, which is a very dark world for those of you unfamiliar with it. So part of our session 0 was very deliberate in setting those lines and veils of like, what are we comfortable with? What are we very uncomfortable with? What do we not want to even touch? So like, be very explicit with your players whenever you're trying to figure these things out. Make sure you know what you guys are good with and what you're not.
And keep open lines of communication throughout play.
Yeah, you can find stuff as you go.
Yeah.
Speaking of explicit, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait.
So my next question is, what inspired your character? Flipping it back to the boyos, kind of combining two questions into one.
Colonel Fitzwilliam.
What did you bring into your character? And then do you see any, now that we've played several now for several seasons, do you see a pattern that is emerging in the characters you play? Do they all have one shared trait or one shared personality aspect? I don't know. Do you see any sort of continuity, I guess would be the term, in the characters you play?
I've tried to directly avoid continuity. I don't know if I have, but I don't know if that's been successful. But
that's like a question for us to answer about each other's characters.
Ooh, I like that. Do you see, I guess that's a better question, Cam. Cam, do you see a continuity in anyone else's characters?
Really, to answer that, I think the answer is no. Like, Freddy and
Freddy's certainly the most different that I've had.
Yeah, but Freddy, Jake, there were a little bit of like personality similarities between Jake and what's his name from season 2?
Why do I just want to call him Ephraim?
Israel, thank you. Israel
Pickens.
I was like, Pickens. What's his first name?
They were both somewhat upbeat characters, although I guess thinking back, Israel was more of a, not necessarily upbeat, but just talkative.
Yeah, a talkative, intellectual Southern boy.
Right. I think all of Dillon's characters have been curious. I think they all kind of share.
Yeah, that is probably the through line. Yeah, that's more of me just trying to figure out what's going on in the world. But yeah, I think for Freddy, I was trying to channel like, okay, how would an Austinian playboy basically function? So that was my whole goal.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where my Fitzwilliam influence came from, and then trying to find I think the whole struggle, I think, with Freddy was like, how much of a bad person should he be? And then like having the redemption / does he grow / how much does he grow, and how do these things pull off? And I think I landed in a spot I was very happy with him, where it was a growth certainly, but not a like reversal of any means. I think he just found a way to healthily express what he was unhealthily doing before.
I think for Cam's characters, I'd say they're all observant. Because and that also
they all have a keen eye for everything. It's true. Yeah.
Yes, there's that. And I think that also is. I mean, all this comes from us as players too. Like what seeps into our characters. I think for Cam's a very observant person, so I feel like that finds its way into all of his characters. Even like Captain Hook was very observant.
Yeah.
As for Sam's characters,
I think we touched on it earlier already, right? It's like we had the very outgoing characters until we hit Niles, which is a very different character than everything else.
Yeah, it's almost like a character triangle so far with Sam's characters. Like Gorfit and Niles are both like Heart of Gold type characters. Gorfit and why can't I remember?
I can't remember the name.
I can't remember his name.
Keith
Gorfit and
Keith with an F.
Keith. Gorfit and Keith are both sort of outgoing, unafraid of expressing themselves. I don't know what similarities.
They are just the mirror of like the dark version of the other. Yeah,
they exist. Yeah. I think for mine, I feel like with my characters at their core, what I'll do is it's like I take their what's that thing in video games when you're making a character and you can kind of move the slider up
sliders.
And down.
No little sliders.
I feel like there's
say.
Except for Gorfit, because Gorfit I was still figuring out. I hadn't played much, but there's like a morality slider. And like with Gorfit, even there, like he went from being totally chaotic to actually having this kind of moral core of wanting to make everyone make friends with everybody. And then with Keith, it was like no morals at all, and that was his thing. And then like even when we played like Morkborg, it was like okay, throw all morality is out the window. And then with Niles, like what if somebody, because we only ever see people in positions of high moral standing as hypocrites. What if he wasn't? What if he like still was flawed?
What if he's the actual moral center of this town?
What if he walked the walk and talked the talk?
Unheard of.
It wasn't even that. It was like, what if he actually cared and believed in what he was doing?
Yeah.
What if he actually, because he was definitely had his flaws. He has a lot of the same flaws as Freddie and Ephraim, but I think he saw his flaws as flaws.
Well, that's why he was a good character. Yeah.
Anyway, so with that being said, Rebecca, as our facilitator, were there ever in a extended edition or director's cut of our campaign, what material would you say was left out that you left on the floor?
Gosh.
What makes it the 4-hour Return of the King?
Tiana Leapfrog was going to send Niles a letter.
Oh, right. We did talk about that.
Oh man, I don't think I've read that to y'all. I have a picture of it. Let me find it.
Please, yeah, let's get this thing pulled up.
Yeah,
oh gosh.
So okay. I never forgot in our session 0 that in creating the connections, Joffrey Schmezos had 2 fiancés, a secret one and a public one. And I held on to that as things were moving forward. And when Tiana Leapfrog was created, and when there was the rumor about her being romantically entangled with Niles, I was like, she's the secret fiance. She's got her own romance going on. And while I was at work and brainstorming during the full-time job I briefly had during this season, I wrote this letter. So here's what it says. My most sweetest Niles. Perhaps that is how the rich and bored of Pearlsfield imagine we refer to one another, but you and I are under no such illusions. If indeed the whispers about our midnight meetings have reached your ears, but not your head, then let us give them more to whisper of, and to meet in flesh and blood. At midnight, a time meant for lovers and liars, at the X Pond. I was going to make up a pond name.
Nice.
Let us discuss how we might use the town's talk to our advantage. If you do not attend our tryst, I will take the rumors into my hands alone.
Oh, snap.
Your dearest, Tiana. P.S. Yes, that was a threat.
Well, he didn't, and she did.
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like Niles doesn't play the social politics very much, and
that was so fun when she was like, we can manipulate, and he was like, no thanks.
But why though?
I'm good.
That's awesome. Okay,
I'll try to think of more, but if you want to ask other questions, go ahead.
That's pretty spectacular. I love.
Yeah, that was a good answer.
So, in terms of back to the boyos, where do you think your characters ended off in terms of their internal conflict?
Oh, I already talked about that with mine, so we're good.
Yeah, Ephraim definitely ended off taking the right hand path. He definitely decided to sort of give up he didn't give it up entirely. He was like, I still kind of want to be a rascal, but like a rascal for hire.
I think
A rascal with productivity, not just a rascal for rascal's sake.
a lovable rogue.
Aw.
Yeah.
I think with Niles, he kind of just got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing with him was supposed to be like desire versus duty, and I think he kind of gave up on desire, but then it came back to him, and it all worked out. And now he's like the head of the chapel, but also a lord, but also married with kids on the way.
Yeah, now it's kind of won the whole game here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a sweet guy. He deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
So we heard Rebecca's feelings.
Ephraim and Freddie were both just like, Niles is a way better person than either of us.
Yeah, there was a sudden realization.
But then Freddie, I mean, y'all both ended up being good characters, though. Like, they both...
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think
my goal with Freddie was to make a good character, not necessarily a good person.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, but I mean a good person. Like, I think everyone would be qualified as redeemed by the end of this one, besides Mumsy.
Yeah.
Mumsy. But even she left, so she redeemed herself a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I wanted Vlad to go down the deep end. Like, I wanted, as you, I'm sure you've heard in the finale, I wanted Vlad to meet up with Captain Hook and get up to some stuff. But then he meets up
It
with
could still
Jim.
happen.
So now
had to meet Jim.
Vlad's
Come
just
on.
like working the bar at some like gnome bar somewhere. He's just like hunched
Exclusively
over.
Juice.
Oh yeah,
Juice.
juice. He made his own juice called juice.
Shoosh.
So, Rebecca, we heard
like
about
poop.
how you feel about Good Society, and feel free to add in more. But, boyos, what are your overall thoughts? If someone's listening to this, having never played Good Society, what would you
I
tell
was
them
literally
about it?
trying to figure out how to make another season of this another time.
Yeah.
It was such a good system.
Good Society was really cool. I've never really tried a diceless system like that before, which I think is awesome. I honestly, after doing it, I feel like everybody who's serious about role playing should try a
think it's
diceless system at least once.
Yeah, it's a good way to get
It
any of
really
your...
recenters your priorities.
Yes, it's a good way to get any of your like hesitant role players like more confident as well, because I think a lot of people just don't feel confident like fully throwing themselves into another person, and that this really helps with that because you do it like at a smaller scale for different people, like more often, which is very helpful when you DM. But DMing is overwhelming, so this is a good way to get a taste of that.
I think it's also good.
Same
to
thing
be-
with the whole collaborative deal.
Yes, I was about to say that. You're making your characters together and you have a structure for those core character elements that you need to consider more than in D&D 5e,
Anything
for
else?
example. Yeah, for a lot of systems. D&D 5e tries to do it a bit with their like background and goals and stuff, but this one is much more focused and collaborative. So not only are you figuring out your character's personal desire very specifically, but then you are intertwining the characters together.
Yeah,
A struggle.
you have a built-in reason that your characters are together,
Yeah.
which is always a problem
And
with
it's also-
D&D.
Yes, I very much.
And it's also much more a part of the game
Yes.
than the backgrounds are in D&D. Those are just there for like, if you can't
Flavor.
figure out how you want your character to be, just roll on these tables.
I
Yeah.
think...
the home campaign that I ran. We had some awesome characters, but they were not connected to each other. They kind of just existed alongside each other. So I feel like I'm better equipped to prevent that next time.
Yeah,
I GM.
the familial drama with having the brothers
Yes.
was really, really great.
Although I will say, I loved playing it, first off. But I will say, I would see how it could struggle to translate to the table.
I think it'd be easier on a table, honestly.
Oh, see, I feel the
yeah, the
opposite,
opposite.
because I love the performative aspect of what we do here, and so I feel like it lends itself really, really, really well to that. If I was at the table, I would recommend like probably making actual letters and actually handing them and reading them out loud.
Yes.
So that way you
That's
can
why I'm saying the
remember it.
table would be even better. Like,
A
you
physical
can actually
table
get some
instead of a
prompts
video
involved.
call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, or if you were gonna do it, I'd almost say like take a whole day and do like a 12-hour one shot of it. Like I'd almost say do something like that, because I don't know, it was
It would
really
work
helpful.
really well.
I was
It
gonna
would work
say,
really well as like a three session, like 4 hour each kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Go through a whole cycle each time, and then
I was thinking it would really benefit from being a longer term campaign because
Also that.
you get to go through the cycle more times. Like I feel like with the format of our podcast, we were only able to go through the cycle 3 times, and I feel like we didn't get to fully utilize
experience what all that was offered.
I think
Yeah, we really didn't get to play with the levers all that much.
I think it also is a great system to combine with other systems, like Abria Iyengar did in A Court of Fey and Flowers. She combined it with D&D 5e. So I think it could be very useful if you're wanting to focus especially more on court and social intrigue.
Yeah, if you have a
while still
role-playing
having-
group, incorporate these elements into whatever system you normally play. Yeah.
I will say I'm really thankful we did do it as a podcast, because I feel like if I played this at a table without recording it, because it is so much more writing your own story, even more than D&D is. Like, I love that we can go back and re-listen to the story. You know, I love
true.
that. Whereas if you're just doing it at a table, you know, you have it in your memory, which is precious. But you know, there is something special about we have it on a podcast, so we can listen to the story
Yay.
over and over again, which is kind of cool to me.
That's really why we started the podcast.
Highly
We just
recommend
love
recording
hearing
your
ourselves
games.
talk.
That's why everyone has a podcast.
Hey.
So I think it's safe to say that we would all play it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
highly recommend.
Yes.
Yeah, I will 100% run it with one of my groups at some point. Like, you know.
I think all of us at the end of the season were kind of, I don't know, had at least one thought of, we could do another season of this. We could just continue
Oh, yeah.
the story. Like, I think
Maybe
we all
the
had
next
that
generation.
thought. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a revisiting like down the line kind of a thing that could happen later.
Pearlsfield, the next generation.
Yeah.
Because I know
Pearlsfield
Make it so.
TNG.
I know the McElroys have talked about doing an Ether Sea season 2 for the Adventure Zone, which is very much a world that needed revisiting because there's just so much in there, and it's kind of the same situation here. Was like, there's a lot we can do with this.
I'd agree.
Speaking
we would
of,
absolutely
I thought of
play it
another
again.
thing I didn't get to include or remember
Oh,
to
snap.
include in the final episode. I really wanted to have more of Ephraim and Georgia's mom, but I had
What a tragic character.
I love her. I wanted to show more of her, just how good of a mom she is, but
Yeah.
also how much she's had to struggle. She's been married like 4 times, at least once. The first one for love, for sure, but I think the others were much more out of necessity because even though we had a not very patriarchal world, her being cursed, people don't want to hire her. How's she supposed to make money? She doesn't have any family. So she's got to
Which is
marry
where the
someone who
kids
will make
pick it
money
up
for her.
And so the kids find that and they perpetuate the cycle. And yeah.
Generational trauma. But her being a very thoughtful and kind of the antithesis of Mumsy, where she's really trying to care for her children and be real with her children.
Which makes it even funnier how Niles and Ephraim ended up being at such odds
Oh,
with each
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Although it's, I think, in terms of things we cut out that we would want to put back in, I think one thing that I missed doing in the final episode was, I think there was a genuine sadness with Mumsy going. I don't know.
I got that from Niles.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think you
that.
conveyed it well.
I think Niles and Freddie's reactions were extremely different. So I think it really showed in, like, you were genuinely hurt by it. Like,
And Freddie was just relieved.
yeah, Freddie's like, oh, thank God.
Which is really ironic considering their relationships.
I know, yeah, exactly. And I thought that was really fun, too.
Speaking about turmoil,
Oh, gosh.
this is kind of, I didn't write this question, Rebecca, you did, but would you mind explaining it a little bit? How did you all feel about the inter-character conflict this season?
Yes, because in previous seasons, the characters, at least seasons 1 and 3, actually mostly season 1,
Yeah.
the characters were very united in their goals, In season 2, they split. And that
Very
was
much.
awesome to listen to. I thought it was done so well. In season 3, Muffin was also a bit of a betrayal briefly, but she was so innocent and confused, it was very easy to pull her back in. How did y'all feel about the conflict between Ephraim and the others in this season? And any new other thoughts? I know we've talked about it already a
Freddie
bit.
didn't know there was conflict, despite there being conflict.
Which is very on brand
Yes.
for Freddy.
Sweet boy.
Yeah, that was very much Freddie's experience.
Niles and Ephraim's confrontation at Ephraim's party, I thought was
one of the highlights of the season.
great. Yeah. Just the
whole party
the-
episode is like my favorite.
yeah, like giving Ephraim the opportunity to just like break character and just get in Niles's face about it for a second. Like,
So good.
are you gonna be a man or are you not gonna be a man? Like, and Niles rose to the occasion, which I think is what started Ephraim
More like raised to
changing
the
his mind
occasion.
about
Yeah, he got. I think he gained some respect for Niles there that he didn't have before.
That was really cool.
Yeah, Niles, committedly, if clumsily, like, did what, like, came out of his shell to try and resolve the situation. And we kind of, Ephraim, like, couldn't help but respect that when he took over to knock out Vlad and just end the whole debacle
That was
there.
so good.
Yeah, I think Freddie's conflict was mostly trying to deal with. It wasn't even conflict as much as just stress with the Georgiana situation, and then with the Dove. Like, those were two conflicts that weren't direct conflicts, but were definitely causing stressors.
I think with Niles, that one scene in the hallway with Ephraim, like when we were done recording,
give me a movie scene of that, please.
yeah, like I can literally picture that in my mind. I think
Yeah.
the same is true with you guys, where it's like I want to just see that scene played out. It was kind of funny. So part of this question says, did you ever have to deal with emotional bleed or that emotions bleeding over into real life? A tiny bit. But when I did, I remembered, oh yeah, I screwed with them so much in season 2. I can't
This
say
is payback.
anything. I can't say anything because Keith was so literally the antithesis to Israel in that he really didn't have a moral base. He didn't respect life.
Keith's whole thing was just to be a foil always.
Yeah. And so, I mean, no one was as bad as Keith this season in terms of, like, just screwing with someone. And that was fun, but I definitely screwed with Dillon a whole lot that season.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
So good.
So if I ever felt like I was being picked on, I was like, you know what? Season
Just
2.
take back.
Season 2. And it always made me, like, it was fun, and I had a fun time, but if I ever felt even the littlest bit bitter, like, why am I being picked on? It's like, well, you played Keith. Like, okay, this is just fair.
On that same line, I think the reason this and season 2 are my favorites is because of those character conflicts. Having division within, especially a Minions and Misfits group, is just so on brand for everything, and it feels so much more real for what we're trying to accomplish. So,
Well, it
like,
also
unity is great,
feels-
but
It feels really real compared to other, like, what do you think of when you think of your, like, run-of-the-mill D&D group? Like, they're always got the same objective, give or take the odd chaos gremlin, which is sort of its own separate issue to deal with.
And usually
Normally
it's
that
to
doesn't
not be a
contribute to
good
the story.
player.
It kind
Yeah,
of
it's usually
plays
just
to
like
the detriment of the story.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
that one player
Yeah.
who's just not tracking with the rest of the group, and that's usually not viewed as a good thing.
In the average D&D group, inter-party conflict is viewed as a bad thing that should be avoided. But when you have a group like the four of us who trust each other to support the story that we're all trying to tell together, it creates a lot more interest. Not to say that season 1 and 3 weren't interesting, because they were. Season 1 was, if nothing else, a just hilarious comedy of, I don't want to say fish out of water,
Gobs.
almost like a screwball comedy.
Gobs out of pile.
Yeah.
I think.
And season 3 was just a heartwarming fairy tale.
Aw, thanks.
I think emotional bleed, and if we didn't define it well, I would define it as the feelings of your character bleeding into your actual personal feelings, or vice versa, because acting itself, there can be emotional bleed when you're handed a script and you're playing a character because you're embodying that character. You're trying to think and move and speak like they would through their perspective. And in tabletop role-playing, you're doing that even more because you're doing that on the fly. So it's natural if your character is in conflict with another that you might start to bristle or get really into it. And I think it's very important to have trust between players, but no matter how well you and your players know each other, you need to have open lines of communication and being free and feeling free to discuss, like, hey, that felt almost personal, was it? Or even setting new boundaries of, I know this is all for fun, but I'm getting too mad when our characters are fighting. Let's find out a fun way to calm this down.
Yeah, we've definitely had that happen in one of my table groups before. It's like, this is like, I can't.
That's why every time we would end an episode and Sam would be like, I swear if you guys break Niles. I didn't have to feel bad because this, like, the plan behind the scenes was going to end in Niles's favor.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, he'll be fine.
Oh, yeah. You can enjoy the torture in the meantime.
Yes, it's so fun, y'all. Let your characters hurt. It's great.
Yeah.
See, and that's the thing where that's why this, as an entertainment podcast, that helps me as a player, because as a player, I get very invested in my character, and I didn't want Niles to lose, and I had to struggle to let to let him fail. And when I'm at the table, I'm even worse about that, where I hate failing because I get competitive at the table, which is not good. But because, again, like I said, I feel safe with you guys creatively, but also because I realize, okay, if my character never fails, then they'll never really succeed.
It's the Superman problem, where it's not an interesting character.
Oh, don't talk bad about my man. I love Superman. But no, I get your point.
That's why I brought him up.
Oh no, inter-party conflict.
But I think that helped me as realizing, okay, this will tell a good story. I trust these people. I know they're going to tell a good story. I know they're not just screwing with me. And that helped me as
just
someone,
hurt for hurt's sake.
Yeah. And I know as somebody who I would say that was one of my weak points generally as a player is being competitive. This format and having a group where you can talk to people is very, very helpful for that.
Yeah. I have the Chaos Gremlin weak point.
The whole time I was like in Ephraim's conflict with Niles, I was like, Ephraim is a spiteful character. I am not a spiteful person.
Yeah.
Like, I am not. None of the things that Ephraim is doing reflect actual spite towards
That
having good motives and trusting one another's motives as players is so key. It was fun to be plotting with Cam about Ephraim, and to be plotting for Niles is good. Of like, ooh, what if this happened? Cam actually messaged me. Do you mind if I share, Cam, about your idea of Ephraim?
Yeah, go ahead.
He had this idea of at the wedding between Georgiana and Freddie of Ephraim standing up and being like, no, my sister can't marry this buffoon. She belongs with the man who really loves her, Niles. And I got this message when I was grocery shopping with my husband, and I just squealed. This is such a bad idea.
Can we improv that scene at some point? I want to see this alternate reality.
Maybe I'll just try to write it and narrate it for y'all. That could be fun.
That's like 3 different twists in one little move.
And it was while Sam was struggling and being like, oh, is Niles not gonna is he gonna have his heart broken? And me and Cam were just like, maybe.
And that helps me. Okay, so as a player, that's one thing. What was Ephraim's end goal regarding Niles before he knew that Georgia felt the way she did? Before the very last part of it, what was his goal?
Trauma.
Just stirring the pot?
So not Ephraim's goal with...
That was the question I was going to ask.
Ephraim's goal with the Worthingtons was to basically suck them dry. He was,
Great.
like we saw with the scene that Niles showed us from Ephraim's memory, is Ephraim was like doing all of these double deals and like backhanded things, basically siphoning money away from the Worthingtons, people who he saw did not deserve it, in order to give them to his
needing family. Yeah.
and himself, which I feel like it had by that point started to become more about enriching himself, which is where he started to falter. He was like, he had forgotten why he was doing it in the first place. And then after Niles discovered what he was doing, then Ephraim saw Niles as sort of an obstacle to be mitigated,
to be removed
in order to continue. Well, not even necessarily removed, but just like danced around like a boxer, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He's sort of just like not really doing anything directly to Niles, but just like secure in the knowledge that Niles can't really do anything to him either.
So when did that change for Ephraim?
So when it changed for Ephraim it started with Ephraim and Niles confronting each other at the party, and then
that was the impetus for everything.
And then deepened with his conversation with Georgia the next day in the rain, and he's just like, he listened to the things that Georgia had to say, is like, man, she's got a point. And like just
Kind of bringing
realizing
it back
that
to
he had
why you started.
realizing he had forgotten what he was doing, and realizing that like the town of Pearlsfield, which at the beginning he kind of saw as just another collection of rubes for him to
Opportunity.
for him to con with like the fake expensive wine and everything. He realized that they had sort of started to endear themselves upon him, and he was just like, time to re-examine my priorities.
That was really fun after Georgia's conversation with Niles about, like, why do you do what you do?
Yep.
After that episode, I was thinking, okay, how is Georgiana going to change? Because I don't want her to just be like, oh, I'm going to tell the truth now. Haha, reveal everything that I've been hiding and deeply suppressing. And instead, her act of selflessness going back again to trying to care for her mom and her younger siblings, and kind of doubling down into her secrecy and hiding herself, ignoring herself, taking Niles's very good and heartfelt advice in the worst way. And that was
Yeah, always a blast. These were some of my favorite character interactions, like, period. So.
Yeah, Ephraim was great. I especially liked his interactions with Vlad, where like you can tell he just tolerates Vlad because he has to.
Turns out the real vampire was Ephraim all along.
Oof. Vlad.
Shall I ask some of the next questions, since I think the next one is one I wrote?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what did you... We talked now about a lot of... about our characters, but what did you learn about yourself, or how you feel about storytelling or storytelling in general, TTRPGs? What did we learn today, kids?
Conflict drives everything.
Woo!
I
love playing bad guys.
Yay!
You're very good at it. I don't know how I feel about that, but you are. I don't know what I learned.
Be comfortable with
learned
conflict.
nothing. No. I forget which episode it
Sam's
was.
just like, I love playing good guys.
Morals of the stories.
Yes, for the Alliance. So, I think we had a really poignant moment, me and Rebecca did, after one of the sessions, where I think it was the one where basically Georgiana was about to break up. It seemed apparent that she was about to break off the engagement. And instead of kind of being there to swoop in, Niles kind of just said, go back to my brother. He's an idiot, but he's my idiot. And really kind of sunk his own ship for all he knew, for the sake of someone else's happiness. And there was just a weird moment of, I don't know how you would describe it, Rebecca, but like I had an emotional reaction to that, where I was just like, wow, I respect this character I played. What?
So there's the emotional bleed.
No,
for
except
sure.
I feel like it was in a way, the opposite. Because I think of emotional bleed as kind of an overlap, when suddenly you are the character instead of you playing the character.
Yeah, the
And so you
character
take
should
the
affect
hurt.
you, not vice versa.
And I think Sam in that moment really was like looking from the outside at Niles and being like, I'm proud of him. And having really acted as Niles.
Yeah. Being like being a self-insert is not the same thing as a character taking a life of their own.
And so Niles went from kind of this silly, foppish character to someone like a man that I actually very much respected. And I was like, I'm proud of this character who's kind of now living on in, my own imagination. But like, it sounds so weird. No artist can talk about characters this way. But like, it's very true. Where it's like I'm very proud of this character and the actions he's taking. And I think, in terms of what I learned about myself, I don't know. But I think, again, playing again with that, what was it called? The
sliding scales?
The sliding scale.
The sliders.
Playing around with the sliding scale of morality with Niles just ended up being very rewarding. It's like, okay, everyone's flawed, but what happens when you actually put your faith in something larger than yourself? And the answer is not as much bad as what the world would have you believe.
Right. In a way, it sounds like, between talking about like letting yourself fail and things like that, it sounds like you learned how to be a better loser.
Yeah, that's a lot of role playing is what a very helpful tool in role playing.
Yeah.
Because like, despite the fact that Niles does like get everything that he wanted in the end
and more, really, he didn't want to be the Lord,
throughout the season, he is very much kind of a loser,
taking the hits. Yeah.
I learned to be a loser.
Yay.
Check it out, Ma. Your boy's a loser.
Losers Club.
Okay, so I had one last question before we move on to what we always have as our last question about future seasons.
Yeah, the teasers.
But there's a part I realized after we recorded our finale, which I loved, that we totally missed out on. And I've needed to know this to close the book on Niles. I have to know. And so no pressure, Dillon.
Yeah,
but
I've been you showed me this document right before we started recording, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And it's been occupying about 60% of my brain matter since we started recording.
So, spoiler alert, although you really should not be listening to this if you haven't listened to our season.
What are you doing here? Get out of here.
But Father Phineas,
passed away.
He passes away. He gives his life to heal Ephraim's mummy, and then kind of fades away in a very peaceful way, but he does pass away, and that is kind of the end of the season. We kind of talk about how the scene was, I don't know, Rebecca, how would you describe the scene when he passed away? We didn't have any words to go along with it, we just had the visual.
It was very simple,
Yeah. It was just basically he was in bed and kind of pulled a Yoda and passed out of existence, leaving like a little blue hat on the pillow.
I think, I don't know if you're going to be happy with this answer.
Wait, hold up. But the question was, 'cause I never actually said the question. The question is,
that's right. Yeah,
what are
yeah.
Father Phineas's last words?
Yeah. So I don't think he had any. I think he literally just had a small smile to himself and just peacefully passed on.
I can deal with that.
And then just...
If it was he didn't have any last words, he just gave like a Terminator thumbs up.
I think it was just a very poignant, like, gentle moment. I don't think there was like any words of wisdom or any joke or anything like that. I think it was just, I'm done. I'm off.
Satisfied, content. And I'm now imagining that he looked Niles in the eyes, and in that moment, Niles
was there,
felt truly seen when a lot of their relationship, like he was calling him Miles, and probably felt like maybe he wasn't really known by Father Phineas. But I'm now imagining over that last year, he was really feeling like Father Phineas did know him and did see him, and in that moment, he was very much seen before he literally passed away.
Well, the right answer was anything except for Miles. So you passed.
Correct.
Thank
you
you, Miles.
If you had said Miles, then I would have like walked away right now and been really upset with that.
You would have flown to Kansas City to punch me.
I would have. I would have been so genuinely upset. Like, as long as you don't say Miles, I'm good. But no,
I would never do that.
I'm a little bit emotional. That's very sweet. I like that a whole lot. Oh
yeah.
Well.
Before we move on to the teasers, I do have one last thing about Ephraim to say, which is
please.
How we arrived at his last name.
Yes.
Because
for those of you who don't know,
you just Google the longest last name.
I was at work.
Well, this is a famous town.
And Rebecca and I were talking about like what Ephraim's background was and how his dad was an elf. And I was like, okay, so she asked me what Ephraim's real last name was. And I was like, wouldn't it just be the same as George's? And she was like, no, they're half siblings. I was like, okay, so if he's half elf, he's got to have an elf sounding last name. I was like, how can I turn this into a bit?
That's always
A
the
good
question for
question
Minions
to
Misfits.
within 30 seconds, I was like, okay, what if I commit to learning how to pronounce the name of that town in Wales that has the longest name in Europe? I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I got to commit hard.
Yeah, I gotta do it.
So I looked up the pronunciation to it. I was still at work. I printed off myself a piece of receipt paper and like wrote the name out phonetically, and then just like every minute that was not spent working was spent just running through this out loud.
Yeah, he was still working. Don't worry, work. He's still working.
until I could say Lanfire Pool Gwyn Gil Go Garish When Drobul Endo Sidial Go Go Goch.
Incredible.
Even without anything in front of him.
As smoothly as possible.
Yeah, I wrote a cheat
It's like that
sheet.
one.
and I
It's
still
like
didn't
that
do
one
great.
newscaster with her guy, just like
Yeah,
rocking
yeah.
it.
So
And
so that's awesome. Finally, what would you all like to see in future seasons? And we will save your answer, my good sir, for last. But let's start with Dillon.
Spoiler alert: he's doing it next time.
Well, I didn't
He
say the
being
name.
Cam.
I didn't say the name on purpose.
It's Cam.
It's Cam. Yeah, Cam is doing our next season. But before we get to that,
It's me, Cam.
Well, you asked. You said we'll get to you
Hi.
last, my good sir, but then we'll
I'm
ask Dylan,
problem, it's
and so
me.
it had to be Cam.
oh, that's fair. Never mind. I could have been talking to myself.
Deductive
Pointed to
reasoning.
self. Talk to you later, sir.
Talk to you, buddy. I'll see you in the mirror.
My logic didn't work because it wasn't
Womp womp.
logic.
One we've talked about repeatedly is I can't remember what it's called now, but the one with the cowboy hats.
Frontier Scum.
Frontier Scum. I would love to see Frontier Scum because I love the mechanic of losing your hat. That's my new favorite thing, and I must play it because of that. But I also just want more of this character conflict nonsense in any season we do ever, so that's my new favorite thing. Thank you.
I just feel like I want to see more extra collaboration in the NPCs and in the world. I just really love that and want to keep doing it, want to keep seeing it. I also want to keep leaning into, the Minions and the Misfits.
Oh, yeah.
Exploring these side and not center stage characters.
The lesser known aspects of the worlds.
Yeah.
I think they haven't really changed since we last did a retrospective. But
Yeah, it should be about the same.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Off-Worlders by Chris P.
Spoiler
Wolf
alert, we've
is-
only played one game from any of our lists since the last retrospective.
maximum.
Chris P. Wolf's Off-Worlders is an amazing rules-light system that is free on Drive-Thru RPG, and I cannot recommend it enough. I actually am working on an expansion for that I want to get out in some form or another pretty soon. But I'm dying to play that game. It's like a
If
sci-fi.
you want to play test, let us know.
I've literally been sending y'all the PDF on our Discord.
Oh, I know for us, yeah. I'm talking about listeners. If you want to play test,
Oh,
Sam's,
please.
In a
new
future
expansion.
session?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Or
let's
not
do it.
season? That's weird.
But I also just got one called Home, which is like a kaiju mech, which I don't know how we would use it, but it sounds interesting. And then the Monty
I'm
Python
always down for some
RPG.
kaiju stuff.
I just got Moria from The One Ring, and then
Yes.
yeah. So there's a whole laundry list, but at the very tippy
am
top is
dwarf.
Off-Worlders. Yeah.
Very nice. Off-Worlders
So
will
I'll-
definitely make it into our seasons at some point because it works so well with our theme.
Oh yeah. There's one that I already have pitched it to the group, and that will probably involve another season, if not a one shot or something.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to use it if we do the Star Wars Christmas special. It's a really
Yes,
good
we'll
system
have
for
to
that.
start with Christmas
We gotta use
special.
those.
That's a tradition.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you'll see it there.
Sorry, Life Day.
Life Day,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it's the Life Day special.
What's Christmas? I don't know.
It's a wonderful Life Day. So I'll start off with a wish list idea that I had that I really want us to do. So I had the best idea for a 1-year anniversary episode.
Oh, snap.
Because that'll be coming up in a couple of
Is
months.
it really? Oh, my gosh.
It's been more than a
In
year.
October, I think.
It'll be 2 years.
Has it been 2 years?
Yeah.
How long has it been?
We started in October of
So
That just goes to
2022.
show how.
That's
That
wild.
just goes to show how quickly time flies.
Now I'm pulling up our Spotify now. Hang on.
We've done over 50 episodes as well. So
Are
we're
you
past
serious?
50. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And we
So
have over
listen to
2,700 downloads.
Oh, yeah. October
2,700
2022.
Yeah.
October 2022. Wow. Okay.
Insane.
Funnily enough, we're recording this in July of 2024, which is our highest, not grossing, because we've not grossed anything, but our
Never
highest...
grossed nothing.
Yeah. We're losing money on this, but it's our highest performing month ever. So thank you, listeners, for that. You'll probably be hearing this in August, if not September, but thank you for making July awesome. Please do the same with every other month.
We heard
You're
you. You like
awesome.
Good Society. It will come back at some point.
So my wish list for an anniversary episode, obviously not the 1 year anniversary episode, but is for us to do a sort of like Across the Spider-Verse
Yes.
/ Spider-Man No Way Home
Crossover ep.
with Gorfit and Weehawk and Osnick
Yes.
all meeting their alternate selves
Yes,
from
this is
the
excellent.
alternate pilots.
I would love that.
And like fighting alternate versions of a bunch of the bad guys from across the seasons.
That's hilarious.
Gorfit versus the Rot would be a trip.
That would be hilarious.
I just want to imagine
we kind of got
their
to see a little
interaction.
bit of Weehawk versus Schmazos also. When he took a pot shot at him from half a mile away.
We need
But-
Israel and the boat right to meet each other.
Oh, yeah. Quentin.
Israel and Quentin need
Yes.
to.
I'm always good to bring
Yeah,
Quentin
we need
back.
to do. We need to do a Minions and Misfits multiverse of madness.
Yes, this would be a blast.
Multiverse of Minions.
That'll be. I think that
Yeah,
that can be
multiverse of
our
Minions.
like 4 or 5 year anniversary where we just have so much to pull from. We're like, yes,
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah. But
do it for 100
here's what we're actually getting.
We could do it for
season,
100
next season.
episodes or 10,000, I don't know, 10,000 downloads, maybe? I don't
That's
know.
nothing.
That's nothing. Yeah, that's fair.
For our next season, we already said it, but I will be DMing. Me, Cam.
Cam.
Um,
Yeah, because all our voices
And
sound
we're
so
gonna be-
similar, you can't tell us apart.
seriously. We're going to be going back to our roots, and then
We're playing Root?
even further down, we're going to be playing Black Hack, or The
Oh,
Black Hack,
man.
excuse me, which is a
The Black Hack.
it's an OD&D hack by a guy named Chris Black. Hold on.
Chris?
We work with a lot of Chris's here.
His last name is Black. That's why it's called The Black Hack. But
Oh, that.
Is it Mac?
Mac Black Hack.
Mac Black.
While he looks
Zach?
that up, I will
Bring
give a
it back.
shout out to the wonderful designers of Good Society since we're talking about that season here.
please
Yes.
With Haley Gordon and V. Hendro for game design, Haley Gordon and Alex Robinson for the writing, Lauren McManaman, that's a fun, awesome last name, for editing and proofreading,
Whoop.
Raven Warner for the wonderful cover illustration and interior
Let's
art,
go.
and Aviv Orr for the connection art specifically.
Bless.
So thank all of you for the wonderful game you've put together.
Thank you so much. It's so good.
David Black.
David Black, not Chris
is-
Black, the other generic
the
white man.
gentleman's name. Specifically, we'll be playing Black Hack First Edition, not Second Edition. There are some slight differences between the two, and I think First Edition is a little bit better for what I want to do.
Sweet.
Setting wise, have you ever wondered what happens to all of those low level enemies that constantly respawn and you constantly just plow through faster and faster every time you gain levels in roguelikes and
Diablo.
Dark Souls and things like that?
Are you just like restating our trailer?
Yes.
How does
Staying
it,
on brand.
but specifically, how does it feel to be the guy
Yeah.
that respawns and gets run past or just
And where do they go
just
when they die?
insta
Where do
killed?
they come from? Where do they go?
Where do they
How
come
does
from?
it
It's
how does it
Colorado.
feel to go from being the enemy that takes 5 hits to kill to the enemy that takes 1 hit to kill?
To the enemy that becomes killed by the passive effect near you.
Right. And what happens if those enemies get wise and figure out how to beat the adventurer without using numbers,
Oh, I love-
without
I love
having the
this.
raw stats?
What happens
three,
when the minions
three-
unionize?
Yeah.
you three will be playing undead minions of an immortal lich
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
living in a roguelike dungeon that constantly
Shifts.
you know,
and, yeah.
shifts around, moves rooms, and you're going to be figuring out how to keep a party of adventurers from waking up the Lich,
Oh, I love this.
who is just trying to take a nap.
Gotta have his
He's not
mid-afternoon
doing
nap.
anything to anybody.
Yeah.
He's just trying to take a nap.
What's the point of eternal life if you can't nap?
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. If you can't nap for as long as you
As
want
long
to.
as you want.
And specifically hire people to let your naps happen.
Right. The first thing you should do with unlimited power is go to sleep.
Hire nap
Just take
enforcers.
a nap.
Nap enforcers. Oh, man.
I love this. This is
But
going to
we're
be a
going to
blast.
have a... not only are we going to be playing Black Hack, though, I, as the DM, will be using a very special tool that I familiarized myself with last year, which is the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide,
gosh.
Ooh,
which
I'm scared.
has some very
Just buck
fun...
wild stuff.
It has some very fun rules for random dungeon generation tucked away in the back.
And as
So
you
we're
all
going to
know,
be-
Cam loves his dungeons.
Yeah, not only are we going to be learning about the characters and ourselves as we go along through the season, we're going to be learning about the dungeon as we go through the
Yeah.
season.
Excellent.
We're going to be learning what
The dungeon
do the
itself is a
characters
character.
call what do the characters call this room that has a bunch of swinging axes in it? What's the point of that? What do they do to get past
It's
it?
called the foyer.
We're going to be
We call that Set's
we're going
Fortress.
to be we're going to be exploring the idea of the dungeon as a place where people exist, where beings exist, and we're going to sort of explore things. So season 2 was really more of a pirate season than an undead season, even though
Yeah.
Keith
There
and
was
Israel were
undead elements.
undead pirates. This is going to be the real undead season.
Oh, yeah.
This is where we're going to explore what it means to be undead, what it means to be subservient to another being, what it means to rebel against that subservience, or maybe what it means to, find solace in that subservience. We don't know.
Have you read / watched Dungeon Meshi? Because some of these themes are going to be very
The
helpful for you in
ecosystem.
this. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be
show.
taking cues from Dungeon Meshi. We're going to be taking cues from basically every roguelike. We're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be taking cues from Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup, which is a
Yes.
fantastic game, even though it basically has no graphics. We're going to be taking inspiration from Souls-likes, all kinds of stuff.
Welcome to FromSoft.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome to how do I turn a roguelike into a tabletop game? That is the puzzle that I will be solving for you all in season 5 of Minions
Coming this
Misfits.
fall.
Look forward to it.
Well, on that note, I think before we end off the episode, we need to thank our wonderful facilitator, Rebecca. Clapping would destroy the mic, so fake clapping. Clapping in spirit. There we go. You did the sound effect. But you did a fantastic job. You should be very proud of what you've done. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure doing another season with you, and I look forward to doing another one.
More and more. Here we go, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
As for you, dear
6 seasons in
listener-
a movie.
Oh, please. As for you, dear listener, we will be coming to you with season 5 very soon in the coming weeks. But until then, please follow us on Facebook, X, Mastodon, all the social
Whatever
media
the
stuff.
socials are.
Yes, please follow us, share us with your friends, and we will see you next time in the Minions and Mistiverse.
The Minions verse.
Minions verse.
Wait, no, that's elimination. Sorry.
Oh no, we're gonna get sued so bad.
Our SEO is screwed by them, by the way.
Until next time.
Bye.
Until next time. Bye, everybody. Hey, everybody. Cam here. Thanks for listening to Minions and Misfits. If you like what you heard, don't forget to check out our socials. The links are down in the description. And please, leave us a review on whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. It'll help us reach more people who can enjoy the episode that you just listened to. See you next time.